Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the pregame lobby. I'm your host, Trep, joined by my co-host, Mr. Williz, and we are solo dolo today. Our good friend Snick is on his way back from, I think, a trip somewhere. He was on a plane. He texted me and said, hey, I'm on a plane. I ain't going to be there. I said, all good. So you got me and Will today. We're going to break down this past weekend's matches and, of course, bring you into this weekend's matches. This is the last weekend, right? Last qualifier weekend?
For sure.
So OpTic has a chance to go 11-0. That's one of the main ones. And I think we still have a pretty hefty middle of the pack right now in terms of where seeding is. But this is the last weekend of matches here for everybody. And so we are going to see what happens. But first, Will, we're gonna get into these matches, man. We're going to break these matches down. We had some decent weekends in terms of pick'ems for the three of us. Maybe a few results we weren't expecting, but nothing too crazy. I think most matches went kind of how we expected them to go, but let's get into them, Will. Let's break down. Toronto Koi took on Cloud9 New York. Sorry, everyone, wrong scene. And this was probably the main match that everybody was like, okay, what the hell happened here? C9 win this series 3-2. It is their second win of the year, and I don't know how Toronto lets this happen. I mean, I will say, I think Cloud9's just, with them being an AM team, they're just a really good S&D team, because it seems like S&D is just the one mode they're consistently playing well in. Even with Joe DeCeve's dropping a 1.4, Cloud9 find a way to win it because they have a dirty Neslo, and winning that one overload is all they needed, even if the hard points aren't close, Will. But, I mean, if you're Koi, this is kind of an unacceptable loss. I mean, you kind of need to win this series.
Yeah, I think it's just an unexpected Neslo. I don't necessarily think. I think Koi has some stuff to work through, but I don't necessarily think like this is some big major like start freaking out sign.
Yeah.
You know, they have two matches this weekend. They're not playing the best teams. They lose one of the ones they should. You know, they lose one of them. They should have won both. I think the big tester this upcoming week. The big test is their match against OpTic this weekend. We'll see like exactly how they really look, I think, because I think they only play once this weekend. Yeah, they do. So I think this weekend will be more of a tell of how Koi is going to look going into the major, more so than this past weekend that we're summarizing here. Good match out of Joe DeCeve's, you know, okay match out of everyone else on Koi. Like when you look at Koi, no one really played bad.
Yeah.
They trolled.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Just got hit with the dirty Neslo. It doesn't take much to win two S&Ds, and if you can just steal a respawn, then you can make a top team's life hell. So it's a big matchup for Toronto this weekend, but it's a tall task going up against OpTic. So see what happens when that match comes in. We had Riyadh taking on Miami. This was one where everyone took Falcons in the predictions, and I was pretty set on Falcons winning this series. But let me tell you, Miami's had a pretty damn good split here. 6-3 after this past weekend. They're definitely they got to be in the top three in terms of standings.
Standings, I think they are. I can tell you real quick. I was going to say, though, I think eye test alone, they might look like the second best team under OpTic going into the major for me right now.
Yeah. I mean, this is a close series.
Standings-wise, they're second. So,
behind OpTic,
getting flashbanged. It's them, OpTic, and then Riyadh going into this weekend. Personally, if you ask me, I think from the eye test, Miami's looking like the second best team. And then Riyadh and honestly, probably Thieves are kind of fighting for that 3rd/4th position for me right now.
Yeah.
It's a hard fought series. I don't want to maps 1 and 2 pretty intense. 20-point differential, and the hard point 1 point. I went to around 11 in the S&D. The overload is kind of where Riyadh lost it there.
Yeah.
Miami looking pretty good in overload. Highlights, Celium has kind of a rough series. He's got a 0.7. Trakes has a 1.3. You love to see it out of Trakes, especially. Anytime their rookie is starting to play well, Miami looks pretty good. I think him and Metals so far have been sort of like the ones that I'm watching to see, like, if they're good, Miami's good. You know what I'm saying? If one of them or both of them are struggling, Miami's struggling.
Yeah, you're always getting that consistency with Super and Rencor. So I feel like those two guys you're never going to really see struggle. Trakes, if he plays like that, I think we've been saying it all year about him. If this team can come into form with him on the roster, because they were winning series when Metals was dropping .7s, but everybody else was positive. So if Treggs plays at that level, I think I can agree with you in the fact that they probably are the second best team heading into the major. Falcons side, I think, two really close maps, map 1 and 2. You kind of just got outslayed kind of heavily in this series a little bit. Treggs with 82 alone. The numbers just weren't there. Like, you're not used to seeing Celiums with .7s. So, you have a good bounce back series later that we'll talk about, but a really good win for Miami, and one they desperately needed. So I'm actually kind of glad I'm wrong on that prediction. But Paris took on OpTic Texas. Now, all of us, of course, took OpTic. OpTic undefeated, and they remain undefeated. They beat Paris Gentlemates 3-2 in the series. OpTic lose their Overload streak. I think it was at like 13 or 14 in a row of winning Overload. They finally lose an Overload. But they win both hard points, and they win a round 11. They lose a round 11 in map 2 on Raid, but I don't know if there was any map testing out of OpTic in this series, but a really good series from there. They were down 5-3 in the game 5, and they were able to rip off 3 straight. Hook with a ace 1v1 win on round 11. So
only 3, unfortunately.
3.
Went back and watched it. Yeah, Shotzi snuck one out.
Either way, a good clutch up from Hook in the 1v1. Merc with a 1.18, doing his thing against the top teams. Him and Shotzi both over 100 kills. Also Neptune and Ghosty both over 100. Ghosty with a 1.15. No one on OpTic. Shotzi was 0.99, so technically a 1.0 KD. Yeah. No one was really negative. Envoy had a stinky 0.69 in this series against OpTic. Envoy's been struggling a lot this stage, has not had a good stage so far. When you're playing teams like OpTic, it's a good thing you pushed them to 5 and almost won it, but you're going to need better play out of Envoy if you're going to want any chance in the major.
Yeah, this is what the matchup between these two teams should look like, and honestly, I wasn't necessarily expecting it coming into this matchup. I had OpTic 3-1. I thought it was going to be a little bit of an easier series. Side note, I don't know if you've seen it, but Gentlemates have confirmed that there are extreme personal issues going on with a couple members of the team right now.
Yeah.
Sib is the only one that has come out with the confirmation. He lost someone in his family that is apparently like very close family, not like a distant relative or anything, like very, very close family member unexpectedly passed away. So could probably explain why the team has been looking rough over there on the Gentlemates side. Because there is also one other person that is going through something pretty serious, but they have not come out and said anything yet, so we don't really know what that is. Depending on what it is that's going on in your personal life, like unexpectedly losing a close family member can 100% have a very negative side effect on your gameplay.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's 2 players going through some pretty extreme stuff, I think that's a pretty good reason as to why I keep wanting to say Miami, why Gentlemates are struggling. I think realistically speaking, with time, this team will return to looking like top 1, 2, second, first best team. I still think they have the potential. I mean, we just saw it, right? They played an OpTic who is undefeated, the closest we've seen anyone play this OpTic team so far this split. So, still a lot of hope there for the Gentlemates roster. It's unfortunate that some of the players are going through what they're going through. Keep them in your thoughts. And then on the OpTic side, they're still just doing what they're gonna do. I think this was the Gentlemates team who, going through what they've been going through, probably had a real long sit down and said, all right, this is the match that matters the most. We have to bring the most fire right here against this match, and they did it. And so, like I said, this is how I expected it to go, or how you should expect it to go, even though Gentlemates have been struggling.
Yeah, and it, hopefully whatever's happened over there in the Paris camp gets settled down after Major 2, and they'll have a little bit of a break to handle things. So, you hope for the best for those guys, but a good win for OpTic. They stay number 1. G2 took on Carolina, and this is a series where all of us picked G2. I thought, I thought that was a pretty safe pick, and Carolina had other news for us. A relatively close series. Maps 1 and 2 were kind of nail biters, but Overload, Ravens ran away with it 6-2. Kremp with a 0.71, not a great series. Lurks with a 1.27 in this series. Kind of a big win for Carolina. Kind of a dagger to G2. You have this play-in coming up. before the major. So, every win matters, and Carolina pulled off one that they desperately needed.
Yeah, I don't know, man. G2's been looking interesting for me recently. Um, I still think they're a very good team. I'm not going to take that away. But so far this split, they've had some unexpected stinkers that I would not have expected, especially with how good they were looking around the beginning of this qualifier and at the end of last qualifier. You're still 5-4. You're not in panic mode yet. You're not worrying about not making it too far at the major yet. But there's definitely some stuff you got to start wondering. What's going on. You're seeing some of your players that have turned it around have a stinky here and there. Skies has had a couple rough ones so far this qualifier. I think Crimp has had a couple stinkies so far this qualifier. So, probably a lot of stuff to focus on right now if you're G2, but I wouldn't say they're worried. On the Ravens side, being blunt, I think you're probably still worried. You're in 9th place right now in terms of standings. You got a lot to worry about going into this weekend. I think what do they have, 2 matches this weekend, or is it 1? They have 2. They should win one of them. So I agree with what you said. Yeah. They should win against C9. Everyone should be winning against C9. I'm just going to be honest. It's good that C9 have pulled out wins here and there, but everyone should be winning against C9.
Yeah.
Their other match is going to be against Miami. Yeah, it's a different story. But I agree with you. I think this is a win that you desperately need. You sneak it out, and you're very happy about it.
Yeah, and you're going to need at least one more this weekend and some dominoes to fall your way if you want to stay out of that play-in. But
yeah, there's going to be tiebreakers that come into play for Ravens.
So we'll see what happens there. Vancouver took on Koi. Koi trying to bounce back from that horrible loss against C9, and they do just that. Joe with another good series, 1.36. Kips with a 1.15. They win at 3-1. They only lose map 2 S&D. Both the hard points relatively close. I mean, if I'm Koi, I'm not really worried about it. You've put yourself, middle of the pack right now. As long as, some things go your way and some teams don't win that you need to not win, you shouldn't be in that play-in. But I mean, you're sitting at 5-5, and you have OpTic coming up, and it's gonna be a rough weekend to see what happens with them. Vancouver obviously 3-6, not in a spot for anything. They're gonna be in that play-in regardless. So a good bounce back for Koi here, and Vancouver just being Vancouver.
Yeah, I still want to look at Kleenex and Insight still have rougher series. They're 3,000 damage below their teammates, basically. If they play anyone other than Surge here or C9, I think this series might look a little bit different.
Yeah.
Based off the performances of Insight and Kleenex. I'm not. Before the team changed to pick up Kips, I was pretty dead on Koi. I didn't really have much belief in them. I'm not ready to give up on them yet. I think the turnaround after picking up Kips has been phenomenal so far for them. I think they still have it in them to be a pretty good team. I think they're still clearly in that top 5, top 6 area. I'm not losing any momentum on them. There's still some just shakiness there that I think they're trying to work through. If they can figure it out, I genuinely think this team could be top 4 contenders. They have moments where they look phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think Kips has brought that energy that they've needed. But I think if you're seeing a little bit of inconsistency towards the end of the stage, they had that fire in the beginning, but they're kind of slowing it down a little bit. So you hope, especially coming into this weekend and the match you got to play this weekend, you hope they kind of have that intensity again. It's gonna be interesting to see how that match goes. But you want to try.
Speaking of inconsistency in the stage,
true. You want to try to stay out of that play-in if you can, if you're Toronto.
Yeah.
But LA Thieves, they took on Cloud9, a team that just beat Koi and got absolutely slammed here. But again, they win another search. It seems like Cloud9 is just genuinely a good S&D team. But every other map was not close. They got absolutely slammed in the hard points. They got slammed in the Scar overload. Scrap had a 1.4. Hydra had a 1.2. Just absolute decimation from Thieves here. And you look at the series, you're like, okay, Thieves are probably going to go 2-0 this weekend. We will get to that second match later. But for Thieves, winning this puts you, kind of, I think this was 5-3 at the time. So you were right there, man. And again, every win matters because you want to stay out of that play-in. I think they're out of the play-in for now, but I don't know how many matches they have this weekend. What, do they have 2 this weekend?
They have 2 this weekend.
Yeah. So
no, they have 1. No, they have 2. I'm sorry.
They have 2. Yeah.
They have 2.
And
they're not necessarily easy either.
So I mean, it gets weird for Thieves. You know, if I imagine if you lose both of them, you might be in the play-in depending on how their results fall. One of them gets even a little scary. So we'll have to see what happens there. Obviously, Cloud9, you're going to be in the play-in, so there's not much to say on that front.
Yeah, I don't really have any notes on this. This series went the way it was supposed to. Doesn't take away from the fact that Thieves have kind of had some up and downs, especially after starting the start of this qualifying stage. How good they look, the fact that they're now they're still 4th place, but the fact that they're 5-4. This has just been a real the fact that 4th place is 5-4 really goes to show just how back and forth these matches have been this qualifier.
Yeah, for sure. Paris came back looking for a victory against Boston, and they get it 3-1 over Boston. They only lose the overload. Really close maps 1 and 2. Map 4 kind of got out of hand for Boston. Ghosty had a great series with a 1.56. Snoopy 0.81 continues to be one of the most inconsistent players in the CDL. I'm kind of disappointed in Boston here, man. What's crazy is Nasty was like one of the better players before Spark joined that team, and I feel like Nasty ever since then has just kind of really taken a backseat and hasn't played all that well. It was a win that Paris desperately needed. If you don't win this series, it gets your play-in bound for sure, and you're still not safe from being in the play-in right now. So, but it's a series you needed to win. You need to bounce back, and you got it.
Yeah, sort of like the last match. I don't have many notes on this series. I think this is a match that mates should have won, and they did it. They lose the overload, but I don't think losing an overload is the end of the world, especially since in mates' situation, you've lost a couple matches you shouldn't have lost. I think you're okay. As long as you're getting the wins right now, I think you're okay with trading a map here or there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really have any notes. Boys positive.
Thank God. Thank God. It only took Boston Breach. G2 took on Boston the very next day. And what do you know? Boston lost again, 3-1. This time the stat line was a little bit better for Boston. Map 4, again, not close. All the other maps pretty close in this series, but G2 able to squeak it out over Boston. A good bounce back for G2. A series you needed to win. There's going to be a lot of those that we talk about this past weekend and this weekend coming up. A lot of must-win series for a lot of these teams. If you're Boston, dude, you were a couple hard points away from being, fucking 5-5 instead of 3-7, but didn't fall your way. G2, I think they have 2 matches this weekend, so you need to at least win one of them. I don't know the opponents. I don't know any of the matches we have this weekend. I know one. I know OpTic play Koi, and that's all I know.
That's the last match of the qualifiers.
Yeah, that's the only match I know of. So, G2 looking to at least get one this weekend. Boston, again, like I said, you're already in the play-in.
Yeah. Yeah, I hate to keep saying this because, it's not really bringing much to the episode. But again, no real notes on this episode, on this match. It went how it probably should have if you look at how good G2 has been historically in comparison to Boston. One minor note, another negative series from Skies. I said it. It was either last episode. It had to have been last episode. I think he's their difference maker for me. Mm-hmm. Like when Skies is really on, that
he's the X factor for sure.
Yeah, he and the fact that he's had a few negative series here and there recently. Not that's not the best. I think Skies is what's going to make or break this G2 team unless the other 3 just have monster series. But that didn't necessarily happen this time around. I think the only reason they really probably squeaked it out is just because Boston are rough. They're in a rough spot. But yeah, Skies, look for him to maybe pick up the pace a little bit more, get back to where he was going into the major, or else I think this G2 roster could struggle a little bit.
Yeah, and last split, Major 1 split, they weren't great online, but they were a lot better on land. So we're going to have to see how they come at
I think that,
but
I think that honestly might have been the activation factor for them. I think they got to land and played so much better, especially Skies on land, and I think it just gave them a lot more motivation. So all of this could be moot. You know what I'm saying? They could get to land and just start running it back again and doing great on land again. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I do think Skies is, like you said, the X factor, and if he's having some negative series, kind of string him back to back, that's something to look at.
Yeah. Vancouver took on Miami. You want to talk about a series where there's not much notes? This would be one of them. Miami absolutely slaughtered in this series. 0.63 from Capsule, the newcomer. 1.43 and 1.42 from Trakes and Super on Miami. This was just belt to ass. Not even close. Again, Miami in prime position. Not going to have to play in the play-in as long as these last two matches go how you need them to. But, this was decimation.
Yeah, I would expect, after seeing how bad this one was, I would expect changes from Vancouver after the major. Maybe. Surge is such a weird roster in recent years when it comes to their teams. I don't actually know what to expect from Surge. Once upon a time, they were actually formidable, especially when they had that team of Accuracy, Sib, Pred, and Mac. You know what I'm saying? They were a pretty respectable roster, but
last year
I don't know. I would imagine team changes are coming to Surge. Especially if you don't make it far, to the major at all, which I don't know if they are.
Yeah, so, I don't think they will.
Who knows?
We'll see.
It just kind of depends on what happens with Boston. But rough matchup for Vancouver. No real notes.
Riyadh took on the Los Angeles Thieves. We all chose Thieves. No, that's a lie.
I think Snicks chose Falcons, didn't he?
I also chose Falcons.
I was the only one who picked Thieves.
Yeah, Will's lived with Thieves. Me and Snick chose Falcons. I didn't think it was going to be a 3-0, but a very close series. A 1-point overload. S&D was kind of a blowout, 6-3 for Riyadh, but 250 to 244 on the hard point. Cell with a 1.3. That's more of what you're used to seeing from Cell on this roster. Kismet the only one negative, but even then he dropped a 0.95. So everyone on Thieves negative. You kind of just got outslayed here. Super close series, but in the end, Riyadh were just able to squeak it out, and that ties them up in record coming into this weekend. So these matches this weekend are going to be super duper important. But a rough one for Thieves. I was thinking they were going to have a good weekend here, but I knew Falcons was going to be a tough one, and it showed.
Yeah, when you look at the three maps, I mean, you said it yourself, they're all close. This easily could have been a series that goes the distance. I mean, we got 6-point differential. The S&D was a little bit more in Falcons' favor, but then you also, the overload is a 1-point differential. At the end of the day, I think Thieves just were letting it go. You know what I'm saying? They weren't clutching up when they needed to. Falcons had a little bit more fire, especially Selyum doing what he typically does. If you're Thieves, you're disappointed in yourself for this loss, I think, especially when you look at how close the matches are.
Yeah,
I know. I'm sure Nate Shot was very disappointed. Is this the one that he quit stream over?
Ah, shit, I don't fucking know. I haven't been paying attention to him. I feel like if Scrap isn't doing all the heavy lifting, this Thieves roster is just, they're just always behind when it comes to playing, and so it's so weird too because I feel like this team at its core should be up there in the top 3 consistently.
I agree before the Neum pickup. I think Neum has been doing a lot of work for them. I think he's actually been really, really good since the pickup. For me, the inconsistencies still fall on Hydra and Abizi. I don't think that they are an SMG duo that really works together well. I think Scrap and Neum are working together really well. But I think, I said it when they dropped Kenny for Neum. I didn't think Kenny was the only issue on the roster, and Thieves are still having issues. You know what I'm saying? I think it was a 4-man chemistry issue more than it was a 1-man issue.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And our final match of the weekend, FaZe Vegas took on the Carolina Royal Ravens. FaZe needed a series win, and they got one. They handled this one pretty convincingly. 6-4 S&D, but even then, 2-round victory on there. A 5-1 overload, Scar victory, and then over a 100-point victory on the hard point. 1.3 from Simp, 1.2 from Draws, and 04. The only person positive on Carolina was Lurks with a 1.2. That just feels like I need to save my spot kind of KD stat line on Ravens. But, yeah, this was also belt to ass. It wasn't even close. FaZe needed this win. desperately, and you have 2 more matches this weekend that you probably have to win both of them if you want to stay out of the play-in if you're FaZe. So,
Oh yeah. They are, what are they? 7. They are. Hold on. 4 and 5. Yeah. They're looking rough right now.
yeah. So you need to win both the matches this weekend if you want to stay out of that play-in if you're FaZe.
You said it yourself. This is belt to ass. I think that that Scar overload needs to have an NSFW warning on it if you go back to watch it. Rough series from Ravens. Kind of expected it though. I think Ravens have just looked abysmal since we've come back from the LAN. I mean, I've said it multiple times. The joke's kind of getting old, but it is. It's very real. The bedroom is no longer safe.
Yep, I agree. Well, that leads us into our final qualifying weekend, Will, and after this, we are into the major. So,
yes, sir.
Let's get into these matches, man. Why don't you jump us in here and take us into our first one?
Yeah, so today we're going to have Genomates taking on FaZe to start us off. On paper, should be a pretty good series. Genomates obviously have been struggling a little bit. FaZe have been struggling since the beginning of the season online. I think taking into account that Paris has some out of game issues kind of weighing on their shoulders, it might affect their series here. I still think they're too good to lose to FaZe though, so I'm gonna take Mates 3-2.
I'm gonna take FaZe 3-2. I think FaZe are in desperation. I mean, both teams are in desperation mode.
Yeah, both of them need to win this.
Yeah.
It's another thing. Before we do this weekend's matches, hold on. I'll go through and read all of the standings real quick.
Yeah.
Just so everyone at home can have a little bit more of an understanding of how important some of these are. So first is OpTic. They are 9-0. Then we got Miami, who are 6-3. Then we got Riyadh at 5-4. Thieves at 5-4. G2 at 5-4. Koi is 5-5. Then we have FaZe at 4-5, and we have Paris at 4-5. Ravens at 4-5. Surge are 3-6. Boston are 3-7, and Cloud9 are 2-7. Now remember, 11 and 12 do not go. And then what is it? 7, 8, 9, and 10 have a play-in bracket that they have to do before they can make it to the winners bracket. So your 7, 8, 9, and 10 going into this weekend, to reiterate, are FaZe, Paris, Ravens, and Surge. 3 of the 4 are tied in standings.
Yep.
So if we say any of those teams in these matchups right now, they are desperate. They are desperation time. They need their wins, especially this match right here. FaZe taking on Mates. This is a big one because this is going to be huge in their tiebreaker if it goes that far. So,
and I think the big thing for me is Envoy just had such a rough split, man. He has not been playing well. He had, one good series last weekend, and I feel like you're going to see a little bit more hunger and a little bit more want out of this FaZe team. Obviously, like you said, Paris are going through some things on the back end. But, I just feel like FaZe are going to be a little bit more it's okay. It's okay if he walks away, guys. I feel like FaZe is just going to be a little bit more hungry for this. You're both 4-5. So, like Will said, all of these teams that are very similar in record, very similar in standings are super, super important. Those last 2 teams don't matter. They're not going to be able to go and play in this play-in anyway. But that's 7 through 10, man. Or that's 7 through 11. What is it? 7, 8, 9, 10, 7 through 10. That's really, really important because you got FaZe and Paris both in there at 4-5, like he said. Then you got a Surge in there that's 3-6, and then I don't remember the other one, but they're 3-7. So this match right here is going to have direct implications on what happens in those standings there. And of course, you got all the other matches that are happening this weekend. They're going to see, what happens with these results when they come in at the end of the weekend. Where are these teams going to be sitting? I imagine whoever loses this series here is going to put themselves in a little bit more of a difficult spot because you got one match left this weekend that you play with these 2 teams, and then you run into, if you're 4-6, you just put yourself in a much more difficult spot, and you need a lot more dominoes to fall for you. But for me, I've got FaZe. Like I said, 3-2. I think FaZe are they're gonna clutch up in the 5. While Will's gone, we'll go ahead and jump into the next matchup. C9 taking on Carolina. We kind of brought this up a little bit earlier, where we talked about Ravens have a series that they should technically win, and this would be that series here. I mean, C9's 2-7. They've pulled off 2 kind of miraculous wins. They've beaten Koi, and who else did they beat? Paris. They beat Paris. So, we know Paris is having a little bit of a rough one. And Koi has been a little bit weird recently, but it's hard to just flat out pick C9 in any series, no matter what team they're playing. They're consistently good at S&D. It seems like they seem like one of the top S&D teams. They've performed well in S&D every time, but until I see some respawn life, until I see some life out of these young players in those respawn modes, it's gonna be pretty tough for me to sit here and say, yeah, you know what? Yeah, they're going to win this series against Ravens. No, I don't think they will. I've got Ravens 3-1 in this series. I'm going to give C9 the S&D because, like I said, they've just been one of the top S&D teams in the game. So I'm going to give C9 the S&D. But outside of that, I think Carolina are going to win the respawns. I think the respawns could be close. But I am going to give Carolina the 3-1 victory over C9 here. And whenever Will gets back, we'll get his thoughts.
I'm going to take Ravens 3-1. I think at this point in time, any of these teams should be beating C9, but I'm gonna be real, man. I think C9 could sneak it out. I think there's a world. I'm just not comfortable on it, so I'm gonna go Ravens 3-1.
Yeah, I just gave them the S&D. I just said I think yes, they're probably one of the better S&D teams, but AMs are always really good at S&D. So
yeah, if there's any teams that I think that they're capable of just like randomly, they beat Koi, but I think Vancouver, Boston, and Ravens are actually teams right now that they could beat, not on some like fugazi shit, like actually beat them straight up. But I just don't see it happening yet.
Yeah. Next, we got Surge taking on G2 to close out today. I feel like this should technically be a pretty easy pick here. I've got G2 3-1. G2 have looked a little shaky recently, but obviously, you got Surge, man, and Surge just haven't really looked great. Yeah. I'd be shocked if G2 lose this series. So, yeah, I've got G2 3-1.
I have G2 3-2. I do think they're going to beat it, but with just how trolly they've been recently, and especially with Skies having kind of a string of rough matches back-to-back now, I think there might be a world where they slip up, but I'm going to keep my faith with them and say G2 3-2.
Our first match to start on Saturday, Miami taking on Carolina Royal Ravens. I think Miami are going to finish the run as the second-best team in the standings. I think they're going to go 2-0 this weekend. Obviously, we'll get into their second match. I think they do beat Ravens. I got them winning 3-1. That would put them at 8-3 to end the qualifiers, which would solidify them as the second best. Don't think Ravens are going to be able to compete, especially if we see the Miami we've been seeing.
Yeah, I agree. I got Miami taking it 3-1. I think maybe there's a way Ravens sneak out like maybe like an S&D or something like that. But ultimately, I think Miami just look phenomenal. I think they do look like second, third team. The reason I say third, I include third in there is because if Gentlemates can kind of move beyond what's happening to them outside of the game right now, I think they're still the second best team. Or like even tied with OpTic for first. Like any given Sunday type of deal.
Yeah.
So, Miami 3-1.
FaZe are going to be taking on C9, second match of the day. Again, this should just be a relatively easy pick. This should be a FaZe team beating a C9 team that they should win. I've got C9 winning the search, and that's all I've given them. 3-1 for FaZe. You have the talent, you have the better members, and you should have the better gameplay mechanics, especially in the respawns. So, yeah, I got FaZe 3-1.
I've got FaZe 3-2. I do think that they're going to win. However, I think if any team is going to somehow troll C9's 2 matches this week, it's going to be FaZe. FaZe will figure out some way to do it. They've had these moments where they just look terrible.
Yeah.
But I do think, I agree, they should beat them, so I'm going to give them the pick. 3-2.
Riyadh taking on OpTic Texas. OpTic looking for the undefeated stage here. They got 2, not easy matches, but, they should be a little bit challenging. I've got OpTic 3-2 in the series. I think Falcons are going to push them the distance. I'm wanting to see, is that S&D play going to keep up for OpTic? I think you could easily see OpTic dominate this series as well. But, I have a stinky feeling that OpTic's going to be pushed to the distance in both of their series this weekend. But I do have OpTic beating Falcons. I got them winning 3-2.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think this should be a harder match for OpTic, so than some of the other ones they've had this split. I think Falcons are looking good. I just don't know if I'm comfortable picking anyone over OpTic with how good they have looked. They're clutching when they need to in their closer matches as well, and that's another thing I think you really got to keep into mind. So I'm gonna pick OpTic. I'm gonna have it 3-1. I think OpTic are capable of beating Falcons pretty handedly. So yeah, OpTic 3-1.
Final match on Saturday. LA Thieves taking on G2. Talk about a series that both of these teams need to win. This is going to be a big one, especially regarding the result of G2 Surge on Friday. But I've got Thieves 3-1 in this series. I have a little bit more faith in the Thieves camp right now. I think you're seeing a little bit more inconsistency out of G2. Is Sky going to play to the level he needs to? Who knows? But I have a little bit more faith in Thieves. I got Thieves 3-1.
Yeah, I've got Thieves 3-2. I think it is possible where Thieves and G2 could kind of trade off on this series and one or the other squeak it out. Just kind of depends on who shows up. I think I agree with you though. I have more faith in the Thieves camp than I do the G2 camp when it comes to these matches where it like genuinely truly matters.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give the edge to Thieves, but I do think it goes the distance.
I wouldn't be shocked. We jump into Saturday. Surge taking on Riyadh. I think this is going to be a DoorDash. I have Riyadh 3-0 over Surge. I gave Surge a map against G2 just strictly due to the fact that G2 has been kind of lackluster a little bit recently.
Yeah.
I'm not giving them a map here. I think Falcons are going to run their pockets. I think this is going to be pretty handily for Riyadh here.
Yeah, I rarely give out 3-0s, so I'm going to take Falcons 3-1. Surge, I think that maybe this world they pull out an S&D, but at the same time, maybe not because Falcons are actually decent at S&D. It's a decent S&D team. But yeah, Falcons should take it away.
Paris taking on Thieves, a match that would usually be, a battle of top fours, but not this stage. It's a pretty 50-50 in my mind here. But I'm leaning the way of Thieves. I've got Thieves 3-2 over Paris. I think there's just so much going on in that Paris camp in and out of the game. I think Thieves are going to be just a little bit more locked in. So I've got Thieves going. I got them going 2-0 on the weekend.
I'm taking Genomates 3-2. I think it does go the distance. I just think after watching Mates push past what's going on and play up to OpTic, I think they will do the same thing for Thieves. I think Thieves is a team that they're probably going to tell themselves we can't troll here. We got to take it super serious like they did with OpTic. And if they do that, I think they should be a better team than Thieves. So I'm going to take Mates 3-2.
That means I have Mates going 0-2 on the weekend. I have them both losing both of their matches. But
yeah, I don't know. I just don't see it. Because if that does happen, I think they're fine. I think the worst that they can be is 9.
Unless Surge
Vancouver,
somehow go 2-0.
Maybe.
Because they'd have the same record at that point. But it would just come down to map count, which Paris should still win.
I think Paris win the head-to-head.
Yeah.
So I think the worst that they can be is 9.
Miami, we're taking on the Boston Breach, second to last match of the weekend. I think, again, this is going to be a DoorDashy series. I think Miami have looked really good. I don't think Boston have necessarily looked great recently. I've got Miami 3-0.
Miami 3-1 just because it has to be like a super lopsided, like OpTic Cloud9 for me to give out a 3-0.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I think maybe there's a world where Breach can randomly grab an S&D or an overload, but I think Miami just look too good right now, so I think they're pulling it out.
I'll hand out 3-0s like candy on Halloween. Koi and OpTic to close out the weekend. I said earlier that I think OpTic's going to get pushed the distance in both their series, and I do. I think they're going Game 5 against Koi as well. I do think OpTic are going to win it. I think they are going to complete the undefeated stage at 11-0 and be the undisputed best team. I can't remember their map count off the top of my head, but I know it's like fucking 28-6 or 7 or some shit like that.
They are 27-7 going into this weekend.
27-7. So, again, I think this is another series where I think OpTic, they've shown that they can come out and smoke anybody. So I wouldn't be shocked if they come out and smoke, but I don't think they're going to. I think Koi's going to play with energy. But I do have OpTic winning, and I have them going 11-0.
Yeah, I've also got OpTic winning. I don't think it'll go the distance. I think that they'll probably end up beating this Koi team. I got it 3-1. I don't know. I think Koi are looking much, much better. I just don't know if they're ready for OpTic yet. I don't know if they're pushing them the distance.
And that's a fair assessment. Well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That is our recap and our predictions for the final weekend of Major 2 qualifiers. The next time you see us, we will be discussing the actual major itself, as the teams will be heading to Birmingham to play. And we'll get ready to crown our Major 2 champion. We'll see who's going to fly all the way over there and take the win. Paris won Major 1. I don't think they're going to be the favorites to win Major 2. I think as of right now, you probably have OpTic as the favorite. But we will see what happens. Enjoy the matches this weekend, everybody. Again, if you enjoy the videos on the channel, hit that like button and subscribe if you're new, if you want to see more of the pregame lobby with myself, Will, and Stickity. We will be back next week to recap what happened this weekend and give our full-on Major 2 predictions on what we think is going to happen. So, again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Will, send us out of here.
Goodbye.